What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to look at the early Steam numbers for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Just talk about them. Much like everything regarding this game, there's been the back and forth and each side, right? And honestly, I'm seeing it with this as well. Now, let me kind of jump to the end of the story first. I don't really know if you can say anything, and so you could say, well, Alex, why are you making this video? I think there's some things we can talk about, but in terms of making like a final, definitive statement, right? This game is doing spectacularly well. They're proving all the haters wrong, or oh, this isn't reaching Baldur's Gate 3 numbers, it's a failure. Number one, I think those are kind of the two extremes, which we'll talk a little bit more about in this video. But number two, I just think it's too early, right? We still don't have, and I'm sure EA will hopefully give us some sales data, as the next couple days go on, and I'll be covering that. I like to cover those things when they come up on games, so stay tuned to the channel, I guess, for that one. But that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, honestly, just to be genuine with you all, I mean, I could pick a side, but I mean, honestly, I think I kind of want to dabble, and I want to give you guys my honest thoughts. So let's look at it right now. Now, when I'm recording this, 52,000 people are playing it, and now it reached its peak back 6 hours ago, kind of midday, right? So I don't think it did it right away. I think this was a couple hours into it, and it didn't peak or anything at night. See, that's actually just something, I do actually go on Steam database quite a bit, look at the Steam charts, kind of just for fun. I'll just like type in random games sometimes, see numbers and whatnot, and there's trends. Sometimes at certain times of the night, you'll have that peak. I would say an interesting thing with Dragon Age, and why, again, this is just the beginning, okay? Because tomorrow and Saturday, I do think are going to be the bigger days. Now, that can be wrong. Honestly, there's been big releases over the past, I would say, maybe month or two, where a game has come out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And now, I think to like things like Hogwarts Legacy, I think to things like Helldivers, okay? Those are just ones that kind of stick up in my mind. And those ones did actually peak, I believe, on the Saturday. It normally took to the weekend. And I mean, I feel like that's kind of obvious, or that's something that probably should happen. You think about just like everybody's day-to-day grind, right? Like which day and which time are going to have the most people kind of lining up or linking up, you know what I mean? So for Dragon Age to come out today, and again, what's actually weird is it was kind of midday. I mean, like, depending on the time zone, I guess, right? It was later for some people. People in the UK, it was actually probably more around the nighttime. But for me, it's just interesting that it peaked when it did, in this small sample size. Okay, now tomorrow and then Saturday, I feel like that's really going to show us what this game has, and again, like, it doesn't have to beat 70,000. It might not, and I guess that's kind of where, like, you don't know. So you can probably say some things right now about it, right? But like, if it beats it, right? If it gets into the hundreds of thousands, which I mean, honestly, right now, I think it will. I'll just give a prediction. I really think it's going to beat the 70K, and I would imagine Friday, midday, towards the second half of the day, or Saturday, I do think you'll get it above 70,000. Now, I don't know 100% about 100,000, okay? I think maybe 80, 85, 90. I don't know if it will get to 100. Now, does that actually matter? Well, the thing is, it's just the people playing it at any given time, right? It doesn't do the sales. And, as the days go, the Steam charts, it does generate. It takes from a couple different analyst sites, which nobody's ever perfect, okay? And in fact, the 3 sites it chooses from all give different numbers, and they're normally off by quite a bit, right? One will say, okay, a game has sold 200,000. The next site will say 300. The third site will say 400. And it's like, okay, well, that's like a good gap. You know what I mean? That's half of the people that one thinks did versus the other. So like, that is a huge gap. But it is something to look at, and it's something in the short term until they give their numbers, right? And it's another thing, this is just Steam. This is just Steam. And I know, in terms of these kind of extremes that I'm seeing online, right? Which, I don't know. As I see more and more of the extremes, I dislike the extremes even more. One thing I see in terms of, I guess, actually the positive, and something I would actually take offense to in a weird way, is like, okay, well, this is destroying Inquisition's mark. And it's like, well, no duh. Like, there's a lot of games that came out 5, 10, 15 years ago that you can go on Steam and say, those games did unbelievably well. I was just doing this actually for Life is Strange, just to kind of like play around with it for those kind of videos. And I look back at Life is Strange 1, which is the highest selling game by miles. It sold more than any of the other Life is Strange by a lot. When you look at those Steam numbers, I don't know if you could actually tell that, because like, the numbers aren't really all that impressive, and it's just the way that it happens, right? It's, well, when does it appear on Steam? Did it appear day and date? And I feel, honestly, actually, I think the stats back you up. Steam is getting more popular. More and more people are playing on Steam. There's the chart that shows how many people are online every day. I think it peaked like a month ago or something, right? Was kind of the news story there. So point being that this game beating Inquisition doesn't really, actually, it doesn't matter to me literally at all. Inquisition, I feel like got like 4,000 or 5,000 people. I think Dragon Age 1 actually also beat Inquisition, and that game peaked at maybe like 15,000, 20,000. So like, these games, this marker right now, 70K, it runs laps around anything Dragon Age has ever done. But this is honestly a new age. Like, that's not it might be a cliche thing, but it's true. There hasn't been a Dragon Age game in 10 years, and the first one was 15 years ago, almost to the day, okay? So it's like, it's been so long. It's a whole new era. These numbers from those games to this game honestly mean nothing to me, okay? When someone says, wow, this did, what did it do? 65,000 more people than the peak of Inquisition. I guess you can write that as a headline, but like that doesn't mean anything, right? Now on the other side of things, let's take shots at the other side. People saying, oh, well, this didn't do Baldur's Gate numbers. This game sucks. It's like, well, Baldur's, like, okay, why are you comparing it to like that absolute extreme? Now, okay, it's a phenomenal game. It's probably the game that you want to reach if you're doing an RPG. Okay, so I get it, I guess, from that perspective, but you're also comparing it to one of the most successful and highest selling games of the last little while. It would be the same thing as Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy did, I think, 850,000 people, all at one time. And it's like, okay, this isn't going to get anywhere near close, but Hogwarts Legacy also sold like 25, 30 million units. I don't think Dragon Age is going to do that, and I don't think that anybody expected them to do it. And that's not to shill for them. It's not to kiss their feet or anything. I'm just kind of being realistic, right? Like and that's the thing, we don't know. You don't know where this is going. You don't know how much it sold. I don't know how much it sold. And we also don't know how well it did on consoles, right? That's another big part of it. Like, is it 50-50? And actually, it can't be 50-50. I guess maybe if you say all consoles and then PC, right? 50-50. But it's like, okay, well, most times games sell more on PlayStation. So, like, what's the spread there versus Xbox? And then what's that spread versus PC? We just don't know those numbers yet. I think people bringing it up and comparing it to Metaphor, or even, I think I did Persona 3 kind of for fun. I just typed in Persona 3 Reload. Those ones are interesting ones to type in because Metaphor is a more neat, it comes from Atlas, comes from, it's got that Persona background, but and that game did really well. That game sold 1 million units in 24 hours, which actually was way faster and more than I thought it was going to do. And I think that game's doing quite well, to be honest with you. And, okay, well, that game got, I think, 85,000 as the peak. And then Persona 3, I think, got 45,000, 46,000, somewhere in that range. That was the peak for Persona 3 Reload. And Persona 3, I believe, reached 1 million sales in a week. Or, yeah, I think that was the actual stat to it. So, to me, those are ones that probably better. And that's not perfect. That's the thing, too. Like, those aren't perfect examples. Those are just, in my opinion, better examples than Inquisition or Baldur's Gate. That's kind of just where I went, where it's like, okay, Metaphor, it's a recent RPG, JRPG, right? And it had a lot of traction, early on, and we know how it did in the first 24 hours. We know how Persona 3 did in the first week, and you can kind of look at those Steam results. So, but again, like, the story is not over because tomorrow, the game could peak at 70,000, that's it. And I would say, okay, well, now maybe it's more in line with the Personas and Metaphors of the world. If this gets like 90, 100, 110, okay, maybe it's in a new, like Dragon's Dogma, I think was like 280,000 in the beginning, or as its peak, sorry. So, it's like, okay, well, now do you compare it to Dragon's Dogma? You don't know. You don't fully know. One final thing, though, is you look at the scores, 76%. So, it's not amazing, but, it's about, 1/4 of every person doesn't like the game. I actually value, by the way, the scores on Steam more than anything else. Like, the Metacritic user scores are so easy to fake, both good and bad. So I really don't put a lot of stock into that. Rotten Tomatoes is like done. That's for movies, but I don't really like that one either. But Steam ones, honestly, I don't make my purchase decision based off of it, but it is something that I put more value into. So, 76%, that's not great. I think the other Dragon Age games do have a higher. I think Inquisition maybe is in like the high 80s. So, we'll see where that number goes too, because, again, you have 70 70,000 people concurrently, right? You have definitely 100,000+ sales. You absolutely do, okay? Maybe like 120, 150, you don't know for sure, but that's a lot of people that have not given a score. And maybe most of them, won't do it at the end of the day, but some will. So I'm going to be really interested to also see where that score, if it rises, right, gets into the low 80s, or if it drops, maybe it drops to like the low 70s, high 60s. Again, I'm not buying it based off its Steam reviews or like the score that I see there, but it is something that, again, I think people do actually put, like, I have a friend that plays a lot of games just on Steam. He puts a lot of value into. I can respect that. Yeah, I can understand how people do that. So there you go. You let me know what you think in the comments. How's the game doing? Let me know your predictions. And, if we hear from EA or BioWare and they say, how much it sold in the first day or two, it sold a couple million, I'll make a video on that as well. Okay. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.